Hello friends, today I wanted to share with you my 2020 wrap-up and favorites. So, my yearly stats usually come from the Goodreads wrap-up, and I looked at it once and I couldn't find it again. So, the ones I could find. I read a total of 186 books this year. That equates to 62,935 pages. I had 26 5-star reads, 102 4-star reads, 53 3-star reads, 3 2-star reads, and 0 1-star reads, but there were 2 that I did not rate. The longest book that I read was A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and the shortest was Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, which, not those books, but books from both of those series made it into my favorites. So for my favorites, I didn't want to do a certain number. I was just like, let me just see which ones call out to me as my favorites. At first I was only going to do one by authors, but then I decided to do one from each series. So, I allowed myself a little leeway there. So these are in no particular order, but the ones at the top of the list are the ones that I was like, yep, that one there. So maybe they were a little bit more favorite than the ones at the end of the list, but really they were all favorites. So if you watched any video between, I think it would have been April and the end of the year, I loved From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was a surprise release that should have been released at a Polycon, but it ended up being released the next week. This is a fantasy romance about Poppy and Hawk, and I hate talking too much about this because I think it's better to go in blind. So, I loved this book so much. Book 2 was really good too. It was the longest book that I read this year, but book 1 is still my favorite. The next book I want to talk about is Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. Thank you, Morgan, at Nothing Better Than a Book, for talking about this book so much and talking about the series so much that I had to pick it up because it's not only a favorite of this year, but a favorite of all time. This is a new adult romance between Ryder and Willa. Willa is a college soccer player, and during one of her classes, she goes to the teacher to try to get notes, and the teacher's like, well, I already gave my set of notes to Ryder, you need to get them from him. She approaches Ryder, and he completely ignores her, and so she, signs him off writes him off as, a jerk and stuck up, and then she attempts again and again and again, and she goes to the teacher about it, and he's just like, you need to make a little bit more of an effort than just asking him once every time, So we come to find out Ryder was also a soccer player, but he has gone deaf. He had an illness that caused him to lose his hearing. I think it was all of his hearing in one ear and most of it in the other, and he's gone mute since then. I love Ryder and Willa so much. I think their personalities complemented each other so well. This was one where it was really difficult to pick book 1 or 2 to put on my list, because Ren and Frankie in book 2 are also just top tier relationship goals. I love this book so much. Next, I want to mention A Worthy Opponent by Katie Robert. This is in her Wicked Villain series. I think it's book 3. I forget what order they came out in. This series is fairy tale retellings, but with villains as the love interest. And this one is Tink and Captain Hook. And something about this one it worked for me. Their relationship worked for me. The characters worked for me on their own. I loved it. In my mid-year freakout tag, I said that this was the best book that I had read so far, and I fully stand by that it was still in the top books that I read. That is Behind the Bars by Brittany C. Cherry. I read this at the beginning of the year. This one is a super emotional friends to lovers second chance. I don't know how to describe it. It's Brittany C. Cherry's writing is beautiful. The story is beautiful. They were friends when they were in high school. They get torn apart from each other. They find their way back to each other, and it's so good. The cover is stunning. I love the back. Yes, this one is my favorite. I love this book. I love it so much. How many times do you think I can say that in this video? Don't make a drinking game of it. Friends, don't do it. Let's go into some of the ones that I don't have with me because they are at my sister's. The first one is A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole. This one is book 2 in her Reluctant Royal series, and this was the best grumpy hero I've ever read. Honestly, I think that's why it's in my favorites. It's just because I signed up for a grumpy hero, and that is exactly what I got, and I appreciate that. Also, it was a really good book too. It was my favorite in the Reluctant Royal series. Also, my favorite in the series is The Hunter by Kerrigan Byrne. This is book 2 in her Victorian Rebel series. The hero is he's an assassin. He's hired to go kill the heroine. He sees her, she's an actress, he sees her performing, and he's like, nope, can't do it. She's under my protection now. I loved it. The last one that I don't have because it's at my sister's, it's actually her book, Lover Revealed by J.R. Ward. This is book 4 in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I was really into this series at the beginning of the year when we were going to a Polycon, and then that got canceled, and I've kind of fizzled off. I think I've only read one since then. But Lover Revealed is Butch's story, and Butch is my favorite. The romance was great. The bromance was so good. Loved it. Yeah, just Butch is my favorite, and I knew that his book was going to be one of my favorites. I just need to continue on with the series. Back to books that I actually have here with me. I have Brazen and the Beast by Sarah MacLean. This was my favorite in the Bare Knuckle Bastards series. This is Hattie and Wit is one of the Bare Knuckle Bastards. This is one where they come to an agreement to help each other get what they want, and end up falling in love in the process. And I loved the characters, I loved the plot, I loved the conflict, I loved everything about this book. So this is where I have 3 by the same author. Now, I read 15 books by this author, so narrowing it down to 3, like, 3 of the books made my favorites. Like, that's pretty good. So, let me do them in the order that I read them, I guess. Tragic by Devney Perry. I know this is not a lot of people's favorite in the Lark Cove series, but it was mine. This one is Kane and Piper. Piper ends up buying the property next to Kane's, and they're like, were they up in a mountain or were they just out in the woods? I forget, but they're kind of separated from the rest of town, and I really like that Devney Perry can do that. That she takes 2 characters and puts them by themselves. So kind of that same vein, but not really, is Quarter Miles by Devney Perry. This is in her Runaway series, book number 3. This one is Catherine and Cash, and the point of the series is that they're trying to get the car across the country, and they separate out the trip into the different characters. Now Catherine's taking it over, and she's gonna take it from Montana to Oregon. And Cash is like, well, she's not going by herself, so she's stuck with me now. Yeah, so they end up on this road trip together, and I adored this book. And then this one. I was hesitant to put this one on here. I only just recently learned that a word in the first book title and the series title is a slur. And I need to do a bit more research on not how it's a slur. If they say it's a slur, it's a slur. About the people who it is offensive to. I need to do a bit more research on that. So I did decide to include it. That really sucks. I'm going to not say the series name anymore. If I mention the first book in any videos, I will again put this disclaimer there and try not to say it. That really sucks. But it's Noble Prince from that series. We're gonna do that now on all of them. This is again one where Stephanie Berry put the characters kind of secluded. This one is Luke. He's the sheriff, chief of police, something or other, and he is kind of keeping Scarlett in his own like witness protection thing, and they spend a lot of time together. And I really enjoyed this book. Got some YAs to throw in real fast. A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Brigid Kemmerer. This was a December read that snuck its way into favorites right at the very end of the year. I had two that did that actually. This one's the first one. This is the second book in the Cursebreaker series. This switches to Gray and Leah Mara's point of view. I loved both of them. I'm so nervous for where the series is going. There's only one book left, but I'm super looking forward to it and also very nervous, and I adored this book. I'm not gonna get into too many plot points because it's the second in a series and you really need to read book 1 first. So I also have another Brigid Kemmerer book, one of her contemporaries, which is More Than We Can Tell. This is the sequel companion to Letters to the Lost, which it should have been on my favorites last year. Yes, Letters to the Lost was in my 2019 favorites, and now More Than We Can Tell is in my 2020 favorites. This was another beautifully written contemporary about YA characters who are just trying to find themselves, trying to deal with a lot of really heavy things and come out on the other side of them. And I love this book. I love Brigid Kemmerer's writing. So the other one that snuck in right at the end of the year is Bittersweet by Serena Bowen. This is her True North series, book 1. This is a second chance romance, kind of. I loved the characters in this. I loved not just the main couple characters, but like the side characters, the family. Everybody in this book I loved. I loved the heroine's a chef. I loved that aspect of it. It had a lot to do with food. The hero makes ciders. It had a lot to do with that. I thought it was great. If you've, like me, have not picked up this series, highly recommend. And finally, the last book that I want to talk about is one that I know not everybody loved. I know not everybody loved a lot of these, but this one specifically, I know that it didn't get... It was hyped up because it was the second to a hyped up book, but I know a lot of people didn't love it, so... Love Her, Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. I adored this. This is a marriage in trouble story. I think one of the things I really loved about this is that it focused a lot on love languages and how do you give love and how do you receive love, and how does that like correspond to how your partner gives and receives love. And I've been doing a lot of research on love languages this year with all the time that we've had on our hands, and I adored it. And I thought it was a very honest, very open marital relationship. I'm not married, obviously, so I don't know that. But it seemed like it was, so I don't know. I really liked Love Her or Lose Her. So those are my favorites for the year. Did you read any of these? Did you love them, or were they not for you? Let me know down below. If you had a favorite from this year that I didn't mention, let me know also, so maybe it can be a 2021 favorite. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time.